Day one of the 2023 US Open was truly one for the books as it gave us drama, upsets, and of course some routine dominance. I'll tell you everything you need to know here on Grand Slam Tennis News today. During her first round match with Rebecca Masarova, 8th-seed Maria Sakkari complained of marijuana smells, and unfortunately her opponent's game was also just as bold and loud. Okay, I know that wasn't that funny. Anyways, after racing out to a 4-1 start, the Greek woman faltered in a 6-4-6-4 loss to record her third straight slam opening round exit. Maria, in fact, has not made a slam second week in 2 years, her last being at the 2021 US Open, where she fell to eventual champion Emma Raducanu in the semifinals. Yet and still, she's ranked 8th in the world, which is crazy, but also goes to show how solid she's been outside of the majors this year. Sakkari was understandably distraught after the match, and she even hinted at maybe taking a pause from the sport. Maybe I need to take a break. I am suffering on the court, but I can't make a decision right now. My mind isn't clear and it's difficult. I'm constantly trying to improve. Maybe I need more time to reach where I want to be. I truly feel that I'm making a great effort, especially in the psychological aspect. Maria also said that she felt nervous and anxious during this match. I definitely think that Maria is dealing with some type of anxiety disorder, and as someone who personally deals with the same thing, I know how hard it must be for her to come out and compete with that weighing on you. I mean, someone with her talent and ability should have more than just a single WTA title. 251 at that in Rabat. She consistently underperforms in big semifinals and finals, and now that has bled over into the majors, where the poor thing can't even win a Grand Slam match. Perhaps she does need to follow in the footsteps of Muguruza or Anisimova and take some time off, but I think a coaching change is definitely long overdue. Tom Hill, I think his name is not doing Maria any favors. This whole anxiety, low-key depression is something that Maria has been dealing with honestly for a minute now. I remember when I covered the DC tournament and she talked about how she didn't expect to make the finals of that event because of all the mental, anguish and all the things that she was going with or dealing with off the court after losing in the first round of Wimbledon. These first round slam losses, they have to do something to your psyche. They're very debilitating, I'm sure. Now, Maria is not the only player in the trenches right now. World number 4 Holger Rune recorded his 4th consecutive loss after a 4-set defeat to Roberto Carballes Baena. Rune infamously threw a bit of shade towards the tournament organizers for putting him on the smaller court 5 to compete in his first round match, but clearly they were onto something with that choice. I didn't expect Rune to go that far this tournament, first because of how little momentum he had coming into the slam, plus he did have to call it quits in his Cincinnati first round match against Mackie McDonald due to a leg injury, I believe. Speaking of McDonald, the American scalped yet another top 20 opponent, this time Felix Auger-Aliassime, who has now fallen in 3 consecutive slam first rounds. I have given Felix a bit of a pass the last few losses because he has been dealing with injury issues, but I am worried the Canadian is honestly in danger of falling outside the top 50 by the year's end. He has a lot of points to defend this indoor swing, winning multiple tournaments and even qualifying for the Nitto ATP Finals. Felix has won only 1 singles match since May, which is just not good, obviously. If he finishes the year inside the top 30, I'd be very surprised at this rate. Coco Gauff, meanwhile, survived the upset bug with a 3-6, 6-2, 6-4 victory over qualifier Laura Siegemund. This was absolutely a mess of a match for Gauff. She was very tense. Normally throughout this whole summer hardcore swing, she's been, very lively with the crowd, very positive with her emotions, and that's something that she's been talking about in the press, being more positive out there on court, but she was very negative early on, and it's just the whole vibes were off with not only her, but her team as well. They just were not giving a lot of energy, and honestly, it did look like Coco would be packing her bags pretty early, and honestly, it would be on brand if she had lost this match, because with all the hype that she's been receiving, people considering her to be a pretty serious title contender, deservedly so, because she's won 2 titles, a 500 in DC and that 1000 in Cincinnati, and of course this player in Siegemund, she did have to qualify for the tournament, so she does have some, some decent form coming into this match. Plus, her game overall is very tricky. She likes to throw in some slice forehands, likes to come to the net, and I think that threw off Gauff a lot. She hasn't faced an opponent quite like that in some time. And I believe the last time that these two played, which was in 2020 at the Auckland Open, Siegemund won that match in 3 sets. So clearly that matchup was a little bit difficult for the 6th seed. In this match, Coco's ground game and serve were both off, but I was also shocked by how poorly she volleyed. She just could not put away a volley to save her life. She just kept getting passed and passed and passed by Siegemund. She also struggled whenever Laura came into the net, and she just kept hitting the ball right at the woman instead of lobbing. Once she finally incorporated that shot, she was much more successful. The match was full of tension, much in part due to the speed of play. Coco complained that Laura took too long in between points, and she asserted to the umpire that her opponent is never ready. Gauff even had to remind the chair that Laura could not sit down on one of the change of ends. Now, Laura was pushing it a bit. She kept taking around 25-30 seconds in between points when you're really only allotted 25 seconds in between the points. Now, Coco went off about that to the umpire at one point, and that did pay off as the German ultimately received a point penalty to go down 5-1. Siegemund actually managed to win 3 games on the trot after that before Gauff finally closed out the match in 2 hours and 50 minutes. You are supposed to play to the server's pace, and sometimes Laura did hold up Gauff. That being said, Coco does play at a very fast pace, so with that combination, there was sure to be some drama. When Pam Shriver asked Coco to describe the match, she said, "slow," throwing a bit of shade towards the qualifier. I get Gauff's frustration, but I think her, Brad Gilbert, and the commentators were being a little bit too aggy about the time Laura took between her serves. She wasn't that slow. The match was 2 hours and 50 minutes long, as I mentioned, but nearly 30 minutes of that match made up the first game of the second set, when Gauff needed 8 break points to finally break her opponent's serve. Gauff has got to play better the rest of the tournament than she did this match, especially if the Obamas are going to be in the crowd and watch her. I think getting this tough match under her belt will help Coco for the rest of the tournament, just enabling her to relax a little bit more. I do think she was stressed and tight with all the expectation and pressure that she had on her coming into this tournament. Now, things are not going to get any easier for the American, who now faces 16-year-old Mira Andreeva for the second time in a major this year. She needs to watch out though for Danielle Collins, who dominated Linda Fruhvirtova 6-2, 6-love. She's a possible third-round opponent for Gauff. Meanwhile, Coco could meet Petra Kvitova in the 4th round, but the 2-time Wimbledon champion has a blockbuster second-round matchup on her hands, facing Caroline Wozniacki, who earned her first slam victory in 3.5 years. Speaking of players who haven't won matches at majors in a minute, Dominic Thiem, he won his first slam singles match since the 2021 Australian Open, dominating 25th seed Alexander Bublik in straight sets. Bublik drew a bit of backlash for apparently saying mid-match, "I'm effing sick of getting all these disabled people back in their career." Bublik was referring to Thiem, of course, and then Monfils, who he lost to at the DC City Open, and Gale, of course, was on the comeback trail himself from injury. Dominic, being the classy guy that he is, told the press about this. "I don't know if the translation is right, you know. If it is, then it's a tough saying, something you shouldn't say in general, just out of respect. But maybe he didn't mean it in that way or whatever. But what can I say about it?" Sasha Bublik, honestly, is just a weird, edgy guy. Not exactly the best speaker from having encounters with him in person. And definitely, I don't think he meant it, that cruelly or that meanly as their translation came about. But that's still, like Dominic said, not something you should say out loud. Meanwhile, title favorites Novak Djokovic and Iga Swiatek cruised past their opening round opponents, handing out a few bagels. Elena Rybakina also dominated her first round match, crushing Marta Kostyuk 2-1, despite people saying the Ukrainian will pull off the upset. With Runa out, Novak, who returns to the world number 1 spot after that first round win over Mueller, looks to be a shoot-in for the final. Iga right now looks to be a big favorite over Coco should they play in the quarterfinals, although Ostapenko still looms in round 4. Then, to round out my recap, briefly highlighting the American success, Taylor Fritz, Frances Tiafoe, Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton, and Chris Eubanks all prevailed, while Sebi Korda bit the dust in 5 sets to Martin Fucsovics. Meanwhile, on the women's side, Jennifer Brady, Bernarda Pera, who upset 16th seed Veronika Kudermetova, Lauren Davis, and Taylor Townsend all booked their spots into round 2. 2017 champ Sloane Stephens did not come through, as she made a valiant effort in a 3-set loss to Beatrice Haddad-Maia, the 19th seed. Looking ahead to day 2, a few former champions are in action, with Daniil Medvedev, Carlos Alcaraz, and Venus Williams on ash. Other Slam champions in Sabalenka, Murray, Wawrinka, Kenin, and Vondrousova take the court elsewhere. That's all I have for my Day 1 US Open recap, and let me know in the comments what you think about the unsurprising upsets, the Coco drama, and anything else. Also, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post my Day 2 recap. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today.